Welcome to Grant's Rock Warehouse, and tonight we are going to take a look at the program, the series, the Saturday morning cartoon, Schoolhouse Rock. We're going to look at the music, we're going to look at the memories, we're going to look at a lot of things. So get ready right after this.
It's great to learn, 'cause knowledge is power. It's Schoolhouse Rockin', a chip off the block of your favorite Schoolhouse Rock.
Holy crap, and welcome to Grant's Rock Warehouse. And we're kind of mixing there. Look at Mr. Klauser. Look at this. We're going to mix it up today. This is, well, I just got back from the 80s cruise, so I'm a bit rusty. But we're going to mix it up today, and we're going to talk about the cartoon, the program, the show, Schoolhouse Rock. If anybody is old like we are, you remember that Schoolhouse Rock. They would play this in between, like, cartoons back in the day. It was just like a, how do you want to call it, like a mini series? But I don't know. It was on ABC Network. I'm sure everybody remembers it. They would cover the themes like grammar, science, economics, history, mathematics, and civics. The original series ran from 1973 to 84. Now I have to admit, I know all the ones from 73. Not too sure about the stuff from 84, but it was actually later revived from 93 to 96. Now that stuff I'm not familiar with at all. And they did some episodes of Schoolhouse Rock that were released direct to video. Who knows? But that's a bit of an intro, but I'm going to turn it over to Peter Jones, who was the mastermind of this whole concept. And, well, you were. What is that sound?
Sorry, that was me.
That's all right. It's all good. I thought maybe it was the anchors from the 80s cruise.
It's a tugboat.
That's what I thought. So I was a bit panicked. But we are not on the 80s cruise. Well, first of all, let me welcome everybody. Peter Jones, John Klauser, and Reed Little here tonight to talk about Schoolhouse Rock. So we're going to turn it over to Peter Jones. He's going to do a bit of an intro. Well, hell, I'm just going to hand it over to him. Peter Jones,
cool.
Take it away.
Excellent. Thank you, sir. Why are we here? It's the 50th anniversary of Schoolhouse Rock, the ABC television series, which they finally kind of gave a title to, Animated Musical Educational Shorts. 3 minutes in length. Grant gave the time frame. Let me just give you a real brief background of how this developed and where it came from. David McCall was an executive at the advertising firm of McCall and McCaffrey. He had a young son who he discovered was struggling with his multiplication tables. But he was also noticing that his son was not having any difficulty learning lyrics to Rolling Stones songs and Jimi Hendrix. So he is wondering, where's the disconnect here? He ends up hiring a singer-songwriter by the name of Bob Duro. And of course, Bob is probably the most important name in this whole series, to help him to write something that would help his son with his multiplication tables. And the first composition Duro wrote was 3 is a Magic Number. Then a gentleman by the name of Tom Yohe, who was an illustrator at that same firm, heard the song and created animation to go along with it. Then an individual named Radford Stone, who was a writer and a producer at ABC, suggested that they pitch it as a series, and it caught the attention of then ABC Vice President and future CEO and Chairman of the Walt Disney Company, Michael Eisner. The first version of 3 is a Magic Number actually premiered in September of 71. It was during the ABC show Curiosity Shop. And how many of us remember that one? I do.
Peter, I remember the name of that, but I do not recall.
Songs.
I'm sure I watched
lessons, lots of puppets. There was a female giraffe that was kind of a lead character. It was an extended version that has never been replayed and has never been included in any of the video collections since. Although it wasn't supposed to originally be a TV series. It was originally pitched as a LP with accompanying booklet, something that Sesame Street ended up doing. But they couldn't get any traction, so they decided to propose it as a animated series. Well, Multiplication Rock debuted in January 6th of 73, and the final episode in March 31st. It was all about learning multiplication tables. In an interview on NPR in 96, Duro said one of the things that he was most excited about is when they came to him and said that the series was a go, they gave him an edict, and they said, don't dumb down the music and don't dumb down the lyrics. And that's what got him the most excited. And I have to think, and see how my partners agree here, that I think not doing that helped provide a much broader canvas for music. And I think it helped it keep from sounding dated. And you run the risk of your audience getting to a certain age and going, oh, that's, sorry, I'm going to pick on Barney. But it gets to a certain point and you're like, so I think that helped a lot. There were 11 original and they were all 3 minutes long. And all the music and lyrics were written by Bob Duro that first season. And that's what started the whole ball rolling.
It's funny though, Peter, think about it. All the people that maybe Bob contacted and put on this series, all these people were jazz musicians.
Very good jazz musicians.
They're very great jazz musicians that are playing basically these pop songs, to some degree. But I mean, how catchy are they though? I mean, all I've got with me is like the best of Schoolhouse Rock, but holy crap, does this stand up? Like you said, it doesn't sound dated. Even kids today, or hell, even adults today could even dig this. And the thing is, when I got this, to be honest, though I know John probably has a lot more Schoolhouse Rock material than I do. All these came back to me because it's like, oh my God, I hadn't heard a lot of these forever, but it all came back like it was yesterday. Well, and that just goes to show you how strong the material was for this stuff.
Well, and also we won't belabor this point. You can go ahead and look it up on your own, but there's just unlimited studies that show when you introduce music into learning, even at the absolute earliest age, and even they say even before birth, that music, along with other types of education things, hit so many more parts of the brain than without music, and really increases comprehension, increases memory, increases aptitude, recall, all kinds of things. So it's not unusual that it could be a long period of time, and all of a sudden we hear it again and we're like, there it is. There it is.
I always think it's sad that when it comes to public education in the U.S. anyway, we are constantly forgetting basic lessons. Like the human mind is programmed to remember rhythm and melody. If you give somebody 100 words to memorize, it's very difficult. If you tell them memorize it to this tune, dun, 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 not a problem. They'll have that down in 5 minutes or less, and it will stick with you for life.
Right.
I have kind of a story about it sticking with you for years later. But, ironically, in the 1980s, there was a mandate that there be a certain amount of educational programming on Saturday morning cartoons. Correct. They actually carved out a chunk of time and said, you must have educational programming. And even in the 80s, I went, this is so much worse than Schoolhouse Rock. Schoolhouse Rock was better content, and you remembered it longer. And this new mandated educational programming is crap. Why do we keep changing what works? I don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know. Classic stuff. I mean, it's still, well, like DC says, The taxation song is still stuck in his brain. So it just goes to show you how powerful and the impact of the whole series was for, well, at that young age, all these make a big impression. So it did work.
I mean, let you want to talk about sticking in your head.
Mm-hmm.
I've been known to go to the bank to get change for work and say I need fives. I'll watch them count it out, and I'll go with them 5, 10, 15, 20, 35, 40. I'll actually do that with them, and they look at me like I'm a complete idiot. But
that's hilarious.
But that's
exactly what I still do, John.
And you know, you know, if somebody asks me how I'm doing, sometimes I'll just say, you know, I'm rocking and a rolling, splishing and a splashing over the horizon. What can it be? I've been known to say these lyrics to it just sticks to you. It sticks here.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's great.
Yeah, and one of the real in the second season when the grammar rock started, when they're dealing with all the parts of a sentence and those types of things, they introduced, I think maybe the second most important person was Jack Sheldon. Jack, I mean, we talk about a great musician. Jack was a trumpeter who played with, catch this list, Stan Kenton, Frank Sinatra, Tony Bennett, Benny Goodman, Count Basie, and was a member of Merv Griffin's house band. And anybody thinks they're rolling their eyes. All those bands back then were made up of the best musicians in the planet.
Right. Top notch.
And so when they were doing sessions, he had all of his friends playing parts and recording these. And, you know, I just wrote down just to give just a kind of a tiny idea of the original 11 in Multiplication Rock. And I always thought that Bob Duro's writing was a little bit like Paul Simon's. It kind of had that lyric, me and Julio down by the schoolyard. That's the kind of feel and sentiment I got with a lot of his compositions. But there's pop tracks, rock tracks, 2 beats, there's funk, there's country, there's classical influences at the beginning of Figure 8, slow blues on Naughty Number 9, and kind of a mystical, who knows what going on with Little 12 Toes. And they were so different.
And Peter, don't forget just how surprising it was when they looped in Black Sabbath in the 1980s to recut everyone's favorite episode, Zero My Hero.
Zero My Hero. That's right.
Well, if you think about it, when you're at that young age back during the early 70s, and they're really introducing you to all these different styles of music as well, even though you're young, you don't really think about it. But that's exactly what they're doing, you know, to some degree.
Well, Conjunction Junction is a full board swing tune.
Yeah.
There's no other way to categorize it. It's full on big band.
Yeah. And actually, so when I was a kid, I found the funny accents that they consistently apply in every song to be super annoying. Unless they had a female singer. The female singers were often allowed to do it straight. But actually, it's just one more element. Those funny accents make it stick in your head, especially when you're a kid. It gives it some texture, some teeth to really hook in there.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, Conjunction Junction's the perfect example. He's got conjunction, junction. I mean, you know, he's like Muddy Waters. He doesn't enunciate, ironically, but it sticks with you.
Well, in my very simple male brain, that is the number one song that still really stuck with me after all these years was Conjunction Function. Junction, whatever it is.
Right.
I swear to God.
What's
you know?
function? Yeah.
But also you should mention, Peter, his vocals though, absolutely killer.
Yeah.
On that. I mean, he's a sax player, but oh my God, how his vocals were so distinguished and so, what shall we say?
Well, they're instantly recognizable.
Instantly recognizable.
You know it's him. Yeah. And, you know, they brought in, you know, a handful of the females as well. Blossom Dearie, you know, when she was doing the Figure 8, that's maybe the most childlike voice, but it's a very gentle tune.
Mm-hmm.
It's, it's symptomatic of the times. A lot of Fender Rhodes instead of natural piano. That one's got cello in it. Better than Revolution number 9. Yeah. Because there's so many great things in there. And the ones that just stand out, obviously 3 is a magic number is a lot of people's favorites. It's the one that started everything, and everybody's, a man and a woman had a little baby. Yes, they did. They had 3 in the family. It's impossible to get out of your head. They call them earworms or hooks or whatever, but they never were annoying. I mean, there's a million other hooks that could be much more, detrimental to our mental capacity. But these weren't them, and they were the perfect length. Usually what they would do, and this is another key ingredient of not only learning, but of compositional structure. State the theme, run it through, and a middle section, recapitulate, do it again. So you got it twice. You started with it, you ended with it. And that is the perfect recipe for learning in my book. That's the way I would teach another musician. Play it, explain it, or in this case, a lot of times they would go backwards, but then they would go and do the original one over again, so you'd heard it again. So there's repetition, even within the small little 3 minutes, but they crammed a lot of stuff in 3 minutes.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, it's funny when you look and you think about it that it took place for 3 minutes. I always thought it was much shorter than that, but
Oh, they seem a lot longer to me.
Oh,
than 3
to you? I just thought they were
Yeah,
just
they
little
seem
blips,
long.
but no. Hell, in Ohio, they might have been editing those for me. I don't know. DC Tune Time says writing hooks is a lost art. Well, I don't know if there is any hooks anymore in any of the pop music that we have around here.
Yeah,
In today's
don't worry.
modern music.
Once AI is writing all the music, they'll just tell it the hook goes here, and it'll take care of that.
I do want to real quick before we go on, I want to thank everybody for showing up and making comments, because this is what we like. This is why we do the live streams. Most people don't do live streams when we're talking like a topic, but we do that over here on this channel. Thank you for coming on. Thanks for giving a comment. It keeps things moving. It keeps things interactive, and it's fun for the panel. So I want to thank everybody for coming on. But anyway, Peter Jones, go ahead.
Well, then you get to the third season, and the third season was to coincide with America's bicentennial. And those started in September of 75. Just the titles. You can, if you remember them, No More Kings. You remember the animation where the shot heard around the world. Of course, the preamble. How many of us learned the preamble by people in order to form a more perfect union? Suffering till suffrage. Suffering till suffrage was way ahead of its time about women not being able to vote. And of course, I'm Just a Bill, right?
Another classic.
And there's Jack Sheldon again.
Mm-hmm.
So I think one thing that there are so many things that if you are younger, and actually I'm going to guess that most of Grant's audience is our age. Let's be honest about this. But if you're a younger person, you miss out on the context of society at this time. So in the 1970s, people were trying to get a thing called the Equal Rights Amendment passed, which, again, it's topical because just last year, enough states finally ratified that to make it an amendment, and they won't make it an amendment because they're like, no, we introduced that with a thing saying it had to be ratified in 5 years, which there's an entire debate about that. But so this was a big topic. So when they put out a message on Saturday morning cartoons about women's suffrage, that was a political message. It was a very targeted message. When they put out cartoons like Verb that featured a young black protagonist in 1974,
Right.
performed to functionally a blaxploitation funk track, right? That was a message. It was like the only African American, I think now that's not even a term, Black American representation on TV in the 70s, at least for kids, was Fat Albert.
Correct.
So then to come in and here are these little educational shorts where you have cartoons of people with different ethnicities. That was a big deal.
They were
seem
quite
like a big deal
diverse.
now, but it was
especially especially large groups when you went to the zoo or if you were in the movie theater. Any of those, it was both male and female and multiple races. Obviously, you could say now, someone could, well, there aren't any Asian references. Well, times are what they were. But they were way ahead of a lot of the mainstream shows that were on later on that same network who weren't as diverse as the cartoons that they were, this little snippet that they were showing in between their cartoons. And it's an excellent point, Reed, because it really was kind of ahead of head of the curve, I think.
Now I seriously doubt you would be. I think some of the chats, I can't, people, this is no offense to anybody. I literally am unable to read the chat text. It makes me nauseous. So I'm ignoring all of the chat as it comes in. That's not a dig on anybody. That's just
that's all right. That's all right. I'm just throwing it up there while we keep going.
Oh, DJ Dog is talking about those little tricks, like the little wagon wheel, the little thin guy who should take a cracker and a piece of cheese, and then
Timer. That would be Timer. I used to love Time for Timer.
That's what he's talking about.
I don't remember.
You take the ice cube trays, put the Kool-Aid in, put the saran wrap, put the wrap over it.
Yeah,
it's sunshine on a stick. Is exactly what
your
he called
toothpick.
I would have
in the freezer.
I would have to see it again. I don't remember that.
Timer had full-length specials. He had a special where he went inside the human digestive tract. Medical shows were big in the 1970s, and so the kids got their own version with Timer. Although that's not exactly Schoolhouse Rock. That may have been a competing network. I would have to look. But I was going to say, nowadays the idea that a children's network would put out something with American history. Now, admittedly, very one-sided American history, very targeted, but nonetheless, a decent encapsulation of little pieces of American history for 3 minutes. And the civics, I still think the civics lessons that they put out, my God, you could pass a high school civics class by watching the Schoolhouse Rock civics programs. They were amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, in No More Kings, they come off the Mayflower and they show two natives, Indians, and they never mention them again and never reference them again. It's like, hi, and they're just like behind a rock and then disappear. It's like, okay, there's no conversation about that. And if you look at Elbow Room, I mean, there's a way to just gently, kindly say, well, here, let's talk about imperialism and land grabs and expansionism and never mind how we got there, but we needed more elbow room, And I thought it was funny at the end. They said, well, if we ever need more, well, we'll have to go to the moon because what's left?
Right. We take over Canada.
That's right. That's right.
And
the other thing too is the number of kids in this generation who learned these. Remember, this was only on one network.
Yeah, it's on ABC.
The other two networks also had cartoons,
but they didn't offer something like this.
No, but if your favorite cartoons were on the other network, you had a tendency to get up, and if you did what I did with my sisters, you'd make a stack about this big of cinnamon toast from the toaster, and you'd sit down in front of your TV and watch cartoons until your parents are like, it's early afternoon. Why don't you guys get dressed and move on about the day? But you had to be on ABC to see these.
Right.
And yet
Which
still they're
meant
so well recognized.
1/3 of all kids saw them, though, as
That's
a
true.
result of that. So
Yeah. And they did repeat infinitum over and over and over and over again.
Right.
You know, I thought it was interesting when Grant mentioned, well, maybe they edited them. So as I went back to look at some videos on YouTube, I had never seen the little intro with the guy who holds up the exclamation point in Schoolhouse Rock. It had the the SR superhero, Schoolhouse Rock superhero. Never seen that before. So whatever station I watched this in the early 70s, I was in California and then Utah, and whatever station was the ABC affiliate obviously chopped that off, and they may not even have done the entire 3-minute stretch. It may have just been like, one verse and chorus.
That's kind of what I remember. They were just very short. They just would edit them down to a minute. I could be wrong though.
I could be wrong too, but
I don't remember them being.
You're right. They are all about 3 minutes in length. I mean, there's not much that goes beyond that length in song.
So, no, because you had to slot it in just like a regular commercial. So it had to be regimented, 3:05, too long, 2:45, too short.
And it seemed like they knew. When I remembered seeing it, was like, if one program would end at say 8:56, and then boom, there comes a Schoolhouse Rock video to take you up to the next hour. That's usually how they spaced them out, like on the half hours or something like that.
Right. So. Right. Yeah. Because they had Schoolhouse Rocky, and he came on later. It's Schoolhouse Rocky, that chip off the block of your favorite Schoolhouse Rock. And he had the thing, and the exclamation mark would fall over. And
that's the guy I had never seen before. Schoolhouse
Rocky. It was Schoolhouse Rocky.
Daddy Bog, hey.
What episodes do you remember the most? Each of you.
For me?
Yeah,
go ahead, John.
Go ahead, John.
Okay, so for me, I would say, when I would think obviously the 5, 10, 15, 20,
Ready or Not, Here I Come.
Yeah. I remember from the bicentennial, I remember a lot of the America Rock ones. The Shot Heard Round the World, the Great American Melting Pot, Elbow Room. I'm sure I saw I'm Just a Bill back then as well. No More Kings. I'm pretty sure I saw a lot of those American rock ones.
Yeah.
I remember a lot of the grammar rock ones. I certainly remember, the Unpack Your Adjectives, lolly, 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 get your adverbs here.
That was a big one.
One of my personal favorites was Verb, That's What's Happening. I loved Verb, What's Happening back in the day.
That's my favorite.
I mean, I think that was when I was getting emotional too the other day when I was watching all these again. But Conjunction Junction, that was always a good one. The science rock ones, I remember those pretty well. So I remember a lot. I actually remembered more than I realized when the mid 90s came out and they started releasing them on VHS, which I probably still have. They're at my mom's house, but I still probably have those. Now I have them on, of course, now I've got the the DVD and you can watch them on Disney Plus. But I'll tell you something. One of the best things I picked up for myself, in case I ever wanted something really fun to listen to, check this guy out.
Oh yeah.
Look at this box set of all 4 of, you have 1 disc of multiplication, America, grammar, science. It's got the bonus tracks of Scooter Computer, Mr. Chips. You got Money Rock, so you got, and you even have a couple of, there was a in the mid 90s was a tribute album that came out, that 90s bands like Lemonheads and some
Lemonheads did a track.
Yep.
Did a bunch of stuff. And while I can't say that's too memorable, there was one that stuck out to me. And it's one that I didn't remember seeing as a kid, but it was The Tale of Mr. Morton. And it was, and some hip hop guy did The Tale of Mr. Morton. sounded really good. You know, I think Jack Sheldon sings the original,
Correct.
but on this one is, and the Mr. Morton is the subject of my sentence, and what what the predicate says, he does. Yeah, the whole thing was just done in that hip hop rap style, and it sounded really good. And I'm not really much of a hip hop guy, but this worked, and it stuck with me a lot more. You know, I could spend all day long going through this official guide thing. Has all the lyrics, and there's like a lot of little trivia bits and pieces, but anyway, but yeah, I strayed away from the favorite episodes, but gosh, I mean, Verbal, That's What's Happened was always a favorite for me. And I think the 5, 10, 15, 20, My Hero Zero, three's a magic number. Yeah, I could probably go on all day listing my favorites. Interplanet Janet.
Yeah, that's a great one.
Gravity. Gravity with that 50s doo-wop style.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was kind of like every season had like almost like a different vibe. You know, like the multiplication had kind of a little bit of a rock, a little bit of blues, a little bit of jazz, a little bit of this and that. I think the grammar kind of stuck to more of a pop song with the jazz influences here and there. I think America Rock had the Americana feel to it. Science was kind of leaning more towards the doo-wop and rock and roll and blues and stuff like that, but it was still just catchy and really good. I think the only ones to me that sound dated are the Computer and the Money Rock ones.
Right. I think so too.
To me, I don't remember any of those, and when I listen to them, I'm like, oh, there's nothing memorable here.
No,
you know, but yeah, there's interjections. That would probably be another huge favorite of mine. You know, I could go on all day with talking about my favorites because I just love these things.
Well, you do have the box set and the DVD, and well,
what's cool about this box set? So, you know, what is really cool about this box set? So it's made to look like the old notebooks that you got it for school, you know,
mm-hmm.
and you got the CDs there, and then you got some, you got a little.
Composite note
composition book.
Yeah,
right.
you got all kinds of odd stuff that comes in this thing, and just neat little stuff. I think there's like a little intro in here by there's like a little intro here from Drew Barrymore and Cindy Crawford and a couple of other people. But this stuff made an influence on people. Let me make one more quick thing, and I'll turn it over.
No, John, you're fine. Go ahead.
There's a little trivia here to show how much this impacted people. Now, this book came out in the mid-90s, I think about 95, 96. It's called The Official Guide to Schoolhouse Rock, and it's written by Tom Yohe and George Newell. Okay? A little trivia here. So when Tom Yohe spoke at a senior symposium at Dartmouth College, a packed auditoriums of students began singing "I'm Just a Bill."
Yeah.
Well,
seems to sum it up right there.
And I have to say, like all really great animation, and as a self-proclaimed addict of Looney Tunes, most of the time, great cartoons are not necessarily written for children. They're written for adults. And if you go back and watch these with adult eyes, there's all kinds of fun little things to catch.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote down just a couple here. In elementary, my dear, Noah's Ark has a functioning motor on it. Nope, that's not correct. In Ready or Not, Here I Come, when they're showing the group at the camp, one of the kids has a t-shirt that says it says Camp Yowie on it. That's great.
Yeah.
You never catch that as a kid. You'd have no idea.
Right.
But it's funny now as an adult knowing, hey, wait a second. That's kind of hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
Just small little stuff that they throw in to amuse themselves. that you catch later, and then now you go, yeah, okay, that was kind of fun.
Here's a doozy. This was funny, and I went back and as I watched, I was like, oh boy, yeah, they did keep that in there. At the end of the Shot Heard Round the World,
Okay,
cartoon. If you look at the scene here where you have the, I don't know if you can see that, where you have all the people in the country.
yes,
You know, and they say the God bless America. If you look where California is,
Mm-hmm.
they drew a naked woman.
Wow.
Wow.
I don't know if you can see it.
No,
It
it's
might demonetize
no,
it,
not there, but
yeah,
Too
it's
tiny.
right. Too tiny. Yeah.
but
Yeah, it's there. It's there. The naked lady in Southern California.
those tricksters.
well, adults were making these things, so they have to
Exactly.
throw in something.
right.
What were some of your favorites?
Ernesto
Steve?
says, "I'll take Bugs Bunny dressed as a girl."
Oh, geez.
Oh, Ernesto.
Can't
Oh,
go wrong with that.
So
You know.
I don't ever remember seeing the Money Rock or Science Rock episodes. I mean,
Okay.
never, not a single one of them. I don't know if my local affiliate didn't show them, or by then I just wasn't watching as many cartoons. But definitely the ones that stuck with me were the American history and the grammar. And I have to say, as a kid, I never thought much of the music in Schoolhouse Rock. It was the least important part of it. Now, the fact that it had music was important, but what type of music? If it was a funk track, if it was like a singer-songwriter tune, if it was kind of a slower blues, none of that mattered. But as the years go by, the ones that I remember are the slow swing blues numbers,
Mhm.
like I'm Just a Bill in Conjunction Junction.
Right.
Well, those are classics.
So there's something about those in particular that the hooks on those sunk in deeper than the others. So when I was in high school, and like most high school people, I had to take an American civics class. I think that's still part of the high school curriculum. I don't have kids, so somebody correct me if I'm wrong. Hopefully, we're still teaching kids at least something about civics.
Well,
One of the things that we had to do was memorize the preamble to the Constitution. And I remember I didn't even bother. I just went into the test and went, "We the people, in order to form a more perfect union." And I would have to, of course, I can sing it faster than I can write. So I would write, then redo it in my head. Establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense. And
Promote
and
the
got through
general
the whole song.
welfare and the
So, I mean, this is like 1986. So we're
Mhm.
talking 13 years after that thing first came out. And I hadn't seen that in years and years. And it was just right there.
mhm.
So
And you still do remembering it now.
And you're
I
still
still
do
do.
it.
I've always been able to. Now, whether the preamble to the Constitution is something that, is the best thing in the world to memorize, debatable. But the fact is, it is an important piece of America's history, and Schoolhouse Rock permanently implanted that in my brain.
Mm-hmm.
The same way that Porky's would permanently implant something else.
God knows I didn't know Porky's was going to make an appearance in this discussion, but
well,
I know what you mean.
Oh, boy.
it's also they're so bright side of the fence, so optimistic. They're getting to the Shot Heard Round the World, and they're talking about the Revolutionary War. They're like, well, we lost this war, but the good news is the leader got really smart, and that helped us down the road. They're like, so let's not dwell on the fact that we lost here, and
Right.
let's just move on. Let's just move on. And thanks to our other friends across the sea who came in and gave us help.
Wow,
Yeah,
Brian, you
good
just picked
stuff.
up the electric company with the comic book.
Wow.
Original
Man, I used to watch
pressing
a lot.
1972.
I used to love some Electric Company back in the
Oh,
day
yeah.
too.
Yeah, that was good too.
Morgan,
All these
Rita
shows
Moreno.
kind of went hand in hand to some degree, you know.
Again, music and learning.
Yep. I mean, I straying off the Schoolhouse Rock thing, but you take Electric Company. What's one thing you remember the most about that show?
Spider-Man.
Spider-Man. Happy neighborhood Spider. What? I don't even know how that works.
Friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
Friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. Thank you.
Yeah.
But I mean, you remember that very quickly for me.
Easy
Hey,
reader.
you guys. But anyway, back to Schoolhouse Rock.
Well, I was going to say, as far as they do have I don't know if this is still in print. I got this off of Discogs, the best of Schoolhouse Rock. But you gentlemen were also bringing up a lot of other tracks that I remember from back then. They didn't even make it on here. I mean, this could have been, well, I mean, there's a 4 CD set out. So I'm just saying.
Right.
But this has got Schoolhouse Rocky, which is incredible. In fact, that's what I played at the end when it had the Grant's Rock Warehouse. 3 is a magic number, is one of my favorites. Figure 8, My Hero 0.
Sabbath.
Yeah, it's got.
I will never not make that joke.
That's a good joke.
In 1983, when Born Again came out, I was like, "Hey, look, Black Sabbath did Schoolhouse Rock."
They did. This has got conjunction function on it, interjections. The preamble, I'm just a bill. This is great, but it doesn't encompass probably enough. But the thing is, me revisiting this, it just like opened the floodgates because it just all came back, you know. So highly recommend this if you can pick it up. I don't know if it's still in print.
Well,
I don't know.
The one that always was the test in our household, and again, I have 2 older sisters, 3 and 6, and it was to see who could follow along on Rufus Xavier Sarsaparilla and not mess up the lyrics.
Right.
Holy smokes, was that a mouthful? It was just all over the place. And again, Jack Sheldon does such a great job with it. And there's so much in there, but you get the sentiment that is okay. Well, now I can just call all of these people a pronoun. I don't have to say their name over and over and over and over and over.
Mm-hmm.
They're now a group, and I can call them or whomever. And I thought, my God, that is by far the most complex lyrically.
Can you imagine, though, the 2023 version of that would have an entire discussion on those people selecting their pronoun first? So you would not be able to. I'm old, people. I'm going to make these comments.
It's okay. You might not even be able to produce this show now. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't. At
awfully
least
woke.
That particular one. But yeah, I'm reading through the lyrics too of that one. I'm like, who?
Oh, I
can tell you, Raffaella, Gabriella, Rufus, Xavier, Sarsaparilla, and Andreas, Albert, Andreas, Armadillo, found an Aardvark, a kangaroo, and a rhinoceros. Now that right? Yeah, I can't even.
You're obviously gonna upset the rhinoceros community. So
yes, but
as times change, so as I was rewatching interjections, and okay, so the kid getting the shot from the doctor, I'm needle phobic. That did not help when I was a child.
Reginald.
But
I remember that too because I did not like that. I remember.
Then they have a very problematic section where this guy is like stalking this woman, and I was like, oh man, I don't remember this being so creepy when I was a child, but now you look at it and be like, no means no, dude, back off.
When Geraldine,
it was a different world. It's a different
exactly.
world.
But he got his.
I guess you're kind of cute.
But he got his just rewards because he turned into a frog.
Turned into a frog eventually.
Yes, right.
So, John, I'm just curious, the DVD set that you popped up there, what does that all include? Does it encompass how much material is on that? Because I have not ever seen that in the wild anywhere.
This has the original 46 animated songs.
Okay.
It has an all new one called I'm Gonna Send Your Vote to College. It has a play, and then the disc 2 has a long lost song called The Weather Show. Never before released on video. The Scooter Computer, Mr. Chips 3-song set. There's a bunch of other little odds and ends of things here. But yeah, it's got all the original 46.
Well, it almost sounds like you'd be better off maybe picking up the DVD as opposed to this.
I think
because
so.
this
They're
is
also
very
more,
limited, even though it's great for what it is.
they're
But
also more fun to watch.
right.
Oh yeah. One of the things here is has in the as you open the booklet up here, it has the top 10 all-time favorite Schoolhouse Rock tunes. So here's what they put in for the top 10.
All right, let's hear it.
So Conjunction Junction, I'm Just a Bill, Lolly Lolly, get your adverbs here, Electricity, Interjections, the Preamble, 3 is a magic number, Interplanet Janet, a noun is a person, place, or thing, and the shot heard round the world.
Why is Lolly Lolly not on here?
I don't know how they amassed that and how they figured that out, but that's how they listed it in here. So there you go.
I've got to search and see if Time for Timer is available in a deluxe collector set here now.
Do you know what one of my favorite lines of all the episodes are? It's during interjection when he throws the ball the other way. The first two guys are obviously upset, and the guy goes, "Hooray! I'm for the other team."
Yeah, for the other team.
That's awesome. That is so cool.
By the way, it turns out Timer also ABC.
Yes, correct.
That's right.
Time for Timer. Yeah.
Time for Timer.
Yeah.
Well, ABC was all over it.
But he called it a wagon wheel. It was like a Ritz cracker with a piece of cheese on it. And when because he was
crackers, sir.
He was hankering for a hunk of cheese. That's what he said. I'm hankering for a hunk of cheese, because part of their deal was to promote healthy snacks while you're watching cartoons all morning, spending all of your life inside instead of out exercising. But one of the things too is that there is a lot of, without being overly preachy in a lot of ways, just subtle nods to certain things. Obviously, 3 is a magic number. They talked about a whole bunch of trinities, but didn't enumerate probably the one that most Judeo-Christian people would say, but they kind of referenced it in the beauty of, now they have the family, and it's about love, and there's a cherished thing. You get to the end of verb, that's what's happening. And what's the very last one they say? To love. He runs home and grabs her, and he's home, and
gets you right.
Get you right here.
Or his grandmother, whoever that may be. But it ends with a sentiment of, something very positive. And I think that's a good thing as well. You kind of remember that too.
And yet we don't remember the naked woman in Southern California. That was very positive.
It was so subtle. We missed it when we were
That's
8.
right. It wasn't quite as subtle as in Roger Rabbit, apparently.
I'm going back to YouTube right after we finish. I think we all are. We have to go to YouTube and be like, is that actually on there?
Here's something that I learned when I was listening to these again. I listened to The Great American Melting Pot, and when I heard singer Lori Lieberman, all of a sudden, I was like, wait a second. That's the Killing Me Softly Lori Lieberman. Wow. Do you know the story? Supposedly she wrote a poem about after seeing a concert with Don McLean, and then 2 other guys wrote the song. And of course, she released it in 71, I think 71 or 72. Didn't go anywhere. Roberta Flack records it, goes straight to #1, but she doesn't get any writing credits because they say she didn't write anything on it. And that voice, all of a sudden, because I had heard Lieberman's version as well, because my older sisters were big fans, and I was like, that's Lori Lieberman. So it was interesting. And we didn't talk about Grady Tate. Grady Tate, when he does his, he does Fireworks, and in Multiplication Rock, he does a couple really great ones. He does I got 6, and Naughty Number 9. Grady's a legendary jazz drummer,
Yeah.
you know, but he was a great singer. Again, just such a great, you know, if these had been maybe lesser musicians, maybe it doesn't come off as well or something. But so, I mean, it stood on its own, both musically and in delivery of the lyrics, which are just perfect.
Right. Well, I mean, in 1973, 1974, everybody doing sessions was a jazz musician, and they were all smoking hot.
Oh yeah.
So you're not talking about until 78, 79. And even then it's mostly guys like, Larry Carlton.
Steve Lukather and all Toto guys.
Yeah. I mean, so the standard in the LA basin for jazz or for studio musicians is just ridiculous.
Yeah.
You guys brought up the thought about how you didn't think this was kind of a safe place, I think, as somebody put it, until the Naked Lady shows up. But you talk about it not being preachy.
All right.
There's one song I think I can slightly beg to differ a little bit, and because I think it can still be talked a little bit about today. Energy, we're looking to try and find some new kinds. Energy, exploring to try and make a new find. Nuclear, thermal, and solar. If we miss, we'll get colder and colder. Energy, we gotta stop using you up.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit.
The energy blues.
Yeah.
I think
But think about it, though. You were also seeing commercials where a Native Indian was crying because there was litter everywhere.
Yeah.
They were environmentally conscientious.
Oh, sure.
It just didn't become a political weapon that people use now to just bludgeon people with on both sides. It was there. And you even had Smokey the Bear, you can prevent.
Give a hoot, don't pollute.
Give a hoot.
That.
I mean, it was there.
The Owl.
Yeah.
Johnny Horizon.
But I remember
you guys probably don't
kid,
remember Johnny Horizon.
I don't know. I'd have to see it again. But I can tell you the Native American.
Must have been a local thing.
The ad with the Native American with the tear made a big impression on me.
Everyone.
They played that over and over again. I remember back in the day. Well, and they also, give a hoot, don't pollute. I mean, that still sticks with me,
Never be a dirty bird.
Right.
That's right. Never be a dirty bird.
They put out a lot of good.
You can stop forest fires.
And be McGruff and take a bite out of crime.
Oh, I forgot about
That's
McGruff.
80s.
Yeah, that's more 80s. Yeah. But yeah,
McGruff the crime dog.
And I think another thing that, and again, I don't want to get overly political here, but I think the 3-ring government song, comparing it to a circus.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Enough said. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, pretty much all you have to do.
Well, and it is also interesting if you're looking at Just a Bill, because they make it no secret that most stuff just sits, and even worse, just gets killed before it even gets in the waiting line. So the odds that something is going to get through kind of just rings out true. Like, well, this is kind of a long shot, but let's give it a try.
Yep.
Yeah, I'd like to teach the world to sing in perfect harmony.
That was another good one. Yeah,
that's another one. That was like remember if you saw Mad Men, that was in the final episode of Mad Men.
Right.
They brought that back.
The New Seekers. Is that
the New Seekers? That's who it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great stuff.
Tiny secret.
So
it's too bad they didn't do like an episode on. Was the book Future Shock? There was a very, very influential, complete bullshit, but very influential book about how we were basically 10 years from destroying the planet because of overpopulation and the lack of food. And I think it was called Future Shock, and it was absorbed into the science fiction of the 1970s. Sorry, this is a completely different subject.
Well, that's okay.
But it's funny that they were willing to take on some environmental themes, but they never did the overpopulation show. That might have been interesting.
Yeah, and nothing about agriculture. There are no farms, no anything like that. And the only animals they really reference are at the zoo or on Noah's Ark.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's, or you're a mouse that's getting hit by a, you're using them as a cue ball.
Right.
I always wondered where they put the dinosaurs on the Ark, because the Ark only had so much room. Where did they put the T-Rex, and what kept the T-Rex from eating all the giraffes and stuff?
They missed the memo that day, I think.
I just wondered. I just thrown
it was just hard to. It was hard to pair them up. They're so solidary. They're such.
About 350,000 years, I think.
Is that what? It doesn't say for sure.
Yeah,
elements.
but if they've got a working motor, I don't think their timeline's a problem.
No.
Working motor, that take us, well, what can I say?
And if you believe Steven Seagal, they had motors that would get 1,000 miles to the gallon.
Well, and what was also interesting is that a lot of the multiplication episodes had a cutoff. Most of the time they would go to 12.
Yeah.
And it would stop. And
you get beyond 12, it gets complicated.
Well, when you got to elementary, my dear, holy smokes, they were up to 25. They just kept going. And that one was really stood out, because usually you're like, okay, I'm at 2 times 15. We're good. They go 17, 18, 19. You're like, oh, wait a second. I didn't remember those. And you're like, crap, And the funny thing is, and I don't know if any of this has ever happened to any of you, but I was pulled over one time coming back from a late night gig. Well, it's 3 a.m. They pull over anybody at 3. I don't drink. I don't have a problem anyway. Anyways, you get nervous. The officer comes up and he's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it's my exit. I'm heading home. I'll be home in 10 minutes."
Right.
He said, "Say the alphabet starting at H." And I'm going, H, A, B, C, D, E, F, H. I had to sing the first part because I never start at H. And I was just like, and he's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "I'll get there." I'm like, H-I-J-K-L. And you're like, and I'm still singing it out loud to this officer. And he's like, yeah.
Although, again, that brings up the point. You're singing the alphabet. We all learn the alphabet song.
That's how
That's how you learn it.
Right.
Yeah.
That's how you learn it.
Yeah, exactly. And in tandem with these, a completely different show, is that I had probably the full collection of those Disney records. You'd have Jiminy Cricket, who would do all the multiplication things. You would have.
I had those too.
Yes, you'd learn a ton of things. And I remember one, and I don't think I can do it anymore, and it's probably wrong, but it was like ZYX, UTV, QTS, RQP, OMN, LKJ, IHEF, GD, CBA. You do the alphabet backwards, and I'm just like, and I missed some, but I mean, I used to be able to do it because it was on this record, and the kid was being kind of flippant in class. And she's like, "Can you do the alphabet?" And he goes, and he does it backwards.
Yeah, but Peter Jones, can you name all the ingredients in a Big Mac?
2 all beef patty, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on a sesame seed bun.
That's
it was a
the
contest.
True test.
It was a test. They would call your house.
I remember.
And if you did it within a certain period of time, you got like a free Big Mac or something.
Yeah.
All of us answered the phone that way.
It's all worthless information. It's all worthless information.
But let's face it, folks. For all you guys watching this, there's 3 very powerful words here that was always said in the Schoolhouse Rock thing. Knowledge is power.
Power. Right.
And what a great way to leave this episode. Knowledge is power. And at this point, we're almost an hour. We've had a great discussion talking about Schoolhouse Rock. We might as well end it here. I want to welcome Peter Jones, John Clauser, and Reed Little here tonight. What a fun discussion. This kind of mixes up what we normally do. We branch out a little bit. Schoolhouse Rock. Hopefully we've triggered some memories,
And what was the last line the little girl said, John?
Darn, that's the end.
And on that, I bid everyone a good night.
Night,
Gentlemen,
everyone.
thanks for showing up. We'll
Thanks,
see
guys.
you. Thanks, everybody. Even though I didn't get to everybody in the chat, Normally we like to throw it out to the chat and have a little interaction, but this topic was just so encompassing. I'll leave it at that. We couldn't get there, but yes, we saw all your chats. I want to thank everybody for showing up tonight. Everybody who supports the channel, please like, it helps the algorithm. And also no sex on this channel because we can't no sex. Anyway, good night, everybody. We'll see you. Gentlemen, I want to thank you for coming on, and we will see you on the next one.